Morning, everybody. Morning. If you would, Dr. Segura, call roll.
Tank. Not here. Carpenter. Here. Berkey.
Here.
McKellar.
Here.
Shear. Here. Fisher. Here. Brown.
Here, I, Nicolette Brown, am attending this June 15th, 2021 regular board meeting remotely. I am physically located in Inland Township in Benzie County in the state of Michigan. I'm able to have two-way communication for this board meeting. Please record this public announcement in the meeting minutes.
All right, thank you for that. The first item is public hearing, and we'll open the public budget hearing right now. Dr. Segura, are you aware of anyone that is here to address us on that issue?
I think what we'll do is we'll start with a presentation by our CFO, Linda Bilecki, and our business manager, Sean Bill. And then once they've concluded their presentation, perhaps there might be public comment.
Very well, thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to present our general education, special education, vocational education, which will be supported by the requested millage levy that we'll ask for your consideration later in this meeting. Next slide, please. So we'll start with the general education budget. We are projecting a beginning balance of 1.7 million. We'll add approximately 14 million in revenue, approximately 14.7 million in expenditures, with a slight deficit of approximately 491,000, leaving us with an ending fund balance of $1.2 million. We will be requesting a general education levy of 0.1909 to support the activities in general education budget. In terms of the assumptions in revenue and expenditures, there's a lot of assumptions that you'll see that are across all of our budgets, right? We employ people across all budgets, and the levies, of course, are all across all three budgets. So we'll just kind of briefly cover those at this one, and then we'll brush over those in the next funds that we discuss. We've had another robust year of property tax increases, so we're expecting a 4.1% increase in property taxes. That will cause us to have a heavy rollback. This is year 6 of a rollback within the property taxes across our region. When the growth exceeds the consumer price index, that's what happens. We had a levy last year of 0.1928. We're expecting that to be rolled back to 0.1909 to support general education. The governor and the Senate both asked for a 2% increase in Section 81 funding. That is general operating revenues for ISDs across the region. And so we are taking that 2% with the hope that that will go through within the final state budget issue. All aware that yet has to be finalized by the state. We are hoping that they'll get it done by June 30th, but we have to take some estimates at this point because we have to have ours done by June 30th. We're expecting reduced carryover dollars from both GSRP and the health grant fund, but we're expecting increase in the literacy grant funds, and that's primarily just revenues to match expenditures. And then an increase in transfers in other governmental units, and that's primarily due to our business and technology services. We have a district that's asking for increased services for technology. And on the expenditure side, the retirement rate has been set at 43.28%. The state is picking up a larger portion of that, and so the Ministers Buy Down Fund will increase our revenue across all three of our operating funds. So the rate did go up, but the state picked up a larger portion of that. The hard cap for insurance was set at 3.7%. All of our salaries have been negotiated with our contracts, so that's helpful when we build budgets. Additional positions, when we say additional positions, it might not necessarily be an addition, it might just be full year hires. If you recall, we had a late hire in terms of our communication specialist who covers all three of the funds. We did have some hires in special education and vocational education, we'll talk about that, but in this fund primarily it's just related to full year hires based on this year partial year hires. Again, those reduction in grant payouts with GSRP primarily. When we have less carryover, we expect that we'll have less expenditures to support local districts. And then continued support of CKLA. This is year 5 of year 6 of that commitment. Special education, we're expecting to have a beginning fund balance of just under $11.5 million, adding another approximately $57 million in revenue, approximately 60.5 in expenditures, leaving us with a deficit of $3.7 million. We have committed fund balance that will be year 3 of the estimated support for special education for local districts that chose a 3-year rollout of those funds, leaving us with an ending fund balance of 6.8, still at that 12% for our fund balance policy. And we continue to be able to levy 2 mills in that fund to support those activities. We have a slight hedge. We'll talk about that in the next slide. In terms of revenue and expenditure assumptions, again, we know the property taxes. Special education, we've been very fortunate since 2000 to have a Headley millage override of 0.7 mils. We have whittled that down to just over 2.064 available mills. We can only levy 2 mills, but we still have a slight bit of a hedge. So we can levy the full 2 mills to support our special education and the programming in the region. It's our largest source of revenue in the special education fund, so it's really important that we continue to be able to levy that 2.0 mils. We are expecting a reduction in Medicaid revenue. We had received a bump up in the FMAP rate. That was part of the COVID relief funding, is that that was increased at the federal level, so that has helped us over the last year and a half. And we are expecting a slight reduction in Section 51 special education funding. You get funded based on your expenditures in the previous year, and given the dynamic situation that we've had this year, our expenditures haven't been as high as what we had anticipated, and that's just given a tough year in terms of transportation and pauses and hiring. So. But again, we're expecting an increase in MIPSRS funding. That's because the state is picking up a larger portion of the pension piece, and an increase in IDEA expenditures. We are expecting additional dollars as part of round 3 of the stimulus payments that came through. Again, on the expenditure side, the addition will be an addition of an ASD teacher. We are noticing an increase in the amount of autistic students, and so we are adding a classroom this upcoming fiscal year to meet the needs of our students. We will include a $1.75 million additional support to local districts for special education. That's based on how we expect we're going to end this year, so we'll pay that out for the next fiscal year. And again, committed fund balance is at year 3 of those districts that chose to have a 3-year distribution schedule. And then vocational education, starting with approximately $1.3 million, budgeted revenue of 11, expenditures of approximately 11, with just a slight increase in our fund balance to end with 1.3. 12 million or 12% for our fund balance policy, and supported by a millage of 0.7094. That is a slight rollback again in that fund in our millage. In terms of the assumptions, we did have a millage of 0.7163. It is rolled back to 0.7094, but still enough to be able to support the robust programming within that program. Slight increase in MIPSRS. As we said, the state's picking up a larger portion of that fund, or of that rate next year. Federal revenue, slight reduction. We did have a little bit of, it's called the GEARS. It was part of the COVID fund, and it supported us in technology purchases. So it's just one-time funding that we are not expecting next year. On the expenditure side, the addition of new positions here, the biggest highlight is that we are reinstating that curriculum position. If you recall, we had paused on that for a few years, and we recognize that there's a need for that. So we are adding that position back in. We will be transferring to the Capital Projects Fund based on our future expected needs. With that, we will have some projects that we'll be bringing to you over this year. And then it includes 100% reimbursement for CTC transportation for our local districts. Next slide, please. This is a copy of the L4029. This is what we're going to ask you to approve, and that we will give to our counties and townships to be able to levy. Total of all of those millages added together is 2.9003. And it again is comprised of general education allocated millage, the special education, there's 4 millages to get us to the 2.0 mills, and then vocational education. That is a rollback from last year of 2.9091. So slightly less will be asking to levy in the region. And I cannot miss an opportunity to showcase the hard work and leadership of our business office under the leadership of Sean Biddle, our Director of Finance. And it is an opportunity for us to showcase their work. It takes an awful lot to get this together to present to everyone. So just want to say thank you to them. Any questions?
Why don't you stick with this just for a minute? Brandy or Renee, anyone? Zoom?
Good morning. There is no one at this time that's requesting public comment unless there is somebody in the room that would like to address the board.
It's not very well. Thanks very much, Linda. Thank you to your staff, your business group for their hard work. All right, there being no public comment, we will close the budget hearing and move on to our regular business. So I'm calling to order the monthly meeting of the North End Board of Education. Once again, Dr. Square.
Tank. Here. Carpenter. Here. Berge.
Here.
McKellar.
Here.
Shear.
Here.
Fisher.
Here.
Brown.
Do I need to make that statement again?
I think we have it recorded. I think
Perfect, thank you.
Same location.
Please join me in the pledge.
I haven't moved.
The pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before the agenda is approved, we need to amend the agenda to include a rescheduling of the July 6th board meeting to July 7th at 8 a.m. And with that adjustment, the recommendation is that we approve the June 15, 2021 agenda as presented. So,
Support.
discussion. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Thank you, Nikki. I did hear you. Welcome, everyone. We're at that point in the agenda where it's time for public comment. And is there anyone physically present that cares to address the board at this time? Appears not. So Renee or Brandy, is there anyone out there raising their hand?
There is not at this time unless someone would like to unmute themselves. But I don't see anybody that has requested that.
Very well, we'll move on to Roman numeral 2. Dr. Segueri.
Thank you, President Fisher. As a result of our strategic plan around climate and culture, every month we will be recognizing a sailor on deck, and that is someone who exemplifies our values as an organization. The data for this month was we had 41 submissions. 23 different staff are recognized others. 37 staff have been recognized by their peers this month. And all 9 of our values as an organization were represented and recognized. 14 different staff groups were recognized. And the top 5 professional groups recognized were in this order: administrators, certified teachers, teacher consultants, business services, and school psychologists. And so as our tradition, we select one of the individuals that had the most nominations. And I am super happy to recognize and present Tina Schillick with this month's Sailor on Deck Award. So congratulations, Tina. Yeah, she handed it back. So I think it's okay. We're gonna get a picture real quick. Does that work? Our communications director would like that. So Joe, if we can. I think Renee is gonna be out in the hall. Look at that. Congratulations.
Where am I going?
We're gonna go this, sorry.
Get your steps in, Joe, get your steps in.
We both see them.
Thank you.
Do another lap. In the bathroom. It's just in the hall.
So. All right, we'll move on to Roman numeral 3 action items and the consent grouping. Is there a motion?
Make the motion.
Support. There's a motion and support. Is there any discussion? Dr. Secord, would you please call the roll?
Tank? Yes. Carpenter?
Yes.
Bergie?
Yes.
McKellar?
Yes.
Shear?
Yes.
Fisher?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Okay, move on to item B, the amendments to the 2021 budgets. Again, Linda.
Thank you. The latest amendments before you are our final estimates in terms of our 2021, 2021, our 2020, 2021 fiscal year operations. Projections for revenue and estimates were updated to more closely reflect where we think we're going to end for the year. And they're aligned with our fund balance policy. Committed fund balance in the special education fund allocates $1.75 million to local districts to support special education, of which will pay out next year, fiscal year, as we spoke about in the budget hearing.
I have a question.
Let's get a motion and a support first.
I'll make the motion.
Support.
This motion support. Jason, go ahead.
So, I'm trying to figure out, and I haven't stared at this long enough to, so it's probably a pretty easy answer, since I haven't stared at it long enough, but when you go through the proposed final budget, and you kind of target that final fund balance as of June 30th of 12%, you kind of are doing math of how much excess there is, and then you're allocating the excess to capital projects based on a policy that eventually will have like, you know, particulars. And then there's an excess that we then allocate, we slice off back to 12% distributed later in the fall, right? That's how it normally happens.
Correct,
And that's the 1.75 million.
correct.
Okay. So, but then, and I get that. So it's a budgeted item for 2021. It's part of this budget, the 1.75. It's just that we're lagging, we're delaying in the distribution of it, correct?
That's correct. We have to look at what the actual expenditures are
Yeah.
for the year and then allocate that.
Yeah, so I get the delayed aspect of it, totally, when you go through the audit and all of that stuff. But then when I look at the proposed budget for the future year, 21, 22, it makes reference included in the budget, and I assume that means the 21, 22 proposed initial budget. It says included in the budget is the 1.75 million to local districts for the anticipated fund balance from 2021. So I guess I'm trying to understand why, is it included in this 21-22 budget? Or is it actually something that's included in this final proposed budget for 2021?
Thank you for the question. It shows up in both. In the 2021, it shows up in the committed fund balance. And then in 21-22, it actually shows up as outgoing transactions or outgoing transfers and other transactions.
Okay.
So it moves to the expenditure
So it becomes an actual expenditure in the 21-22.
when we actually pay it out, yes.
It's almost, it feels a little like a cash accounting as opposed to like an accrual accounting. Maybe I'm getting that wrong. I just don't know how it shows up in both, but maybe later on, like offline, you can explain that to me, just so I can kind of follow it. But then when I look at the 21-22 proposed budget, you get to the end and it just, I'm not saying magically in any kind of like sarcastic way, but it kind of like magically gets to a 12% ending projected balance, which implies that there's going to be an excess that is later distributed in some way, either to the capital projects or to special education. And so are you kind of building in that there's going to be another distribution of one more of either capital projects, or do you ever explicitly state what that projection is that gets you to that 12% at the end of 21-22?
I think we did in the narrative, but
Okay, I was looking for it. I see the 1.75, but that feels like a this year story as opposed to a 21-22 story.
yeah, it might be more easily seen in the capital projects piece in terms of the access.
But some of it allocated to special education.
Not at this time, because it's until we get to a more solid number, which would be about this time next year, when we actually look to say.
So
what
we
is-
siphon off in the budget to get to that 12% number for 21-22. We siphon off and allocate it towards capital projects that gets you to the 12%. Now, if something else shows up as excess, that might get allocated to special ed across to the LEAs. Okay.
And just a point to remember that this is gonna be based on our final audit, right? And so that's why the distribution it doesn't happen until it closes out, and the final audit doesn't happen until.
I totally get the 2021, the 2021 1.75 million. I know that's a final audited number that will ultimately be something close to it. It's just that you are at the end of the 21-22 budget, you are siphoning off a portion into the capital project side alone at this point to get you back to 12 in the budget.
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
Okay, I would say the only comment I have, and I know this is it feels like a regulatory structure. I've looked at these, well, I'm starting to forget having looked at these, but I've looked at these in the past. They always look similar. It'd be lovely to see, there's this kind of like big number of outgoing transfers, which I know that the LEA transactions and all the capital projects transactions going. Is there any way to like have sublines to explain what that was made up of, instead of having to, like, I don't know if it's easy for the public to go in and go, okay, well, there was a transfer of X numbers of millions of dollars, what were all those transfers for? And not all of them, but like the major ones. But I know this fits into a structure that we've always presented this way.
That's because that's the structure that's put before us by Michigan Department of Education. And so that's the structure that we have to follow when we present our budget, but we could make it a little bit more explicit, I think, perhaps in terms of the communication.
Maybe a little narrative that sort of says, we had like 8.7 million of transfers out, and it's like 8 million for this, 700,000 for that, or something, so that we kind of have an idea. Someone could look at it and go, oh, okay, I know what that, because it's kind of a catch-all line that sort of shoves the money out to various places, then you get to the end result of 12%.
Yeah, we can look at.
And I think you could dig probably through all the narratives and find the pieces, but
We can add a footnote.
yeah, so maybe later on, like offline, you can kind of help me understand how the 1.75 shows up in the current upcoming budget, but it also happens to show up in the final proposed budget for this year. So anyway, that was my only questions.
Other questions from board members? Okay, there's a motion to support. Go ahead, take the, if you would like to support.
Tank,
Yes.
Carpenter,
Yes.
Berge,
Yes.
McKellar,
Yes.
Shear,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes,
Brown.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
thank you. We'll move on to item C, which would be with the dealing with the 2021-2022 budgets that we just had a hearing about. Linda?
Yes, thank you, Joe. The proposed budgets were the budgets that we reviewed during the budget hearing. That is supported by the proposed millage rate of 2.9003. Again, the millage has been rolled back. It's our 6th year in a row. The millage has been rolled back, but it is a reduction from 2.909 from the prior year.
Motion?
Yeah, I make a motion to.
So motion support, discussion.
Yeah, I had just one question. I didn't ask it before, but Headley rollback, general ed. That's the only one that had the Headley rollback, right?
Vocational education.
Vocational. So does that mean that the local revenue for special ed is the 4.1? But the other ones are basically a subtraction of around like 1% from that. I mean, are we seeing a 3.1% increase? I mean, I looked at the ratio of the rollback. It looked like a 1% haircut.
Yeah, right. It's, the millage goes up, or the millage is rolled back, but the increase in revenue is still there because it is an increase of 4.1% over the prior year. So I'm not quite sure what the percentage would be. It probably wouldn't be the same in general education, vocational education, because there's quite a difference in the millage levy.
Right.
But we can calculate that.
So it's look like special ed is getting the full, the property values went up by 4.1. Millage stayed the same, 4.1 flows through.
Correct.
But on the other ones, it was like, I was the general ed one that I focused on, that 0.1928, 0.1909 or whatever it was. They would be 4.1, but then you get that, so the property values go up by 4.1, then there's that rollback piece of a lower millage. So it's like you get it looked like about a 1% haircut on your 4.1. Is that how it kind of works?
Yeah.
Like you gain here and you lose a little.
Correct, yes,
Okay.
but it's still a gain.
And you were saying on the special ed side that we're like getting kind of close to the point where rollback might slice back the increase in property values at some point?
Yes.
It's all gonna race against the clock, right? I mean, we don't quite know when that happens.
Yes, it's depending on the formula and how it works. We do have a hedge. We currently have 2.064 mils available. It depends on how quickly the property tax values increase. And it's new construction's okay. It's all of the resales, which we know that, of course, in this region, resales have been quite robust. But then we also know that the consumer price index has increased pretty dramatically over the last
So it's like a
months.
gap that slices back that 0.06 that we got as our cushion.
Yes, then you have to factor in losses and additions because they all factor into the formula. But, the more actually inflation increases and the better off it is actually.
Yeah, shrinks that gap.
Yes.
So are we, I know you don't know for sure, but are we 2-3 years maybe, we might be in a situation where what do we do once we hit that number? Like all of a sudden now there's a Headley roller. Do we consider a millage vote that, I don't know what you call it, I can't remember what it's called, a Headley restoration or whatever it is? Are we kind of at a point where 2 or 3 years from now, we would ask the public for that?
Yes.
Or is that a discussion we would have?
So we've been in some discussions preliminarily with our local school district superintendents. We've recognized that the special education costs for our region and the unfunded costs are exorbitant. And so a rollback to our special education millage would be significant to our local districts in terms of less revenue. And so therefore, we are going to be in discussion about a potential Headley restoration and another cushion as we did several years back. So we would want to make sure we're conscious that we're not adding additional costs for a new levy. So timing of that will be important. So again, preliminary discussions, I think we feel pretty good about, we're good this year. Something that we might want to look for.
I mean, 0.06 it's like 3%. I mean, it's going to take a couple of years, I think, to get that. The general ed and the vocational ed with the Headley issue, we've sort of accepted the Headley rollback as a decrease, right? But special ed might be a different kind of animal that we would attack in a different way. address in a different way, I should say.
Yes, I think that is, it is the largest source of revenue within that fund, and it is certainly the source of revenue that allows us to be able to support local districts in the region. And it's an area where the cost has seemed to outpace many of the other costs for local districts, as well as for us. It's, the needs of the students have continued to increase, as referenced by the need to add another special education classroom in the park.
And one final comment I would say is now that we've let that millage in both vocational education and general education dip below what was approved, any ask of the voters would then be an increase. Right?
Oh, I know.
And so that's the nuance between, when someone goes to the polls and says, I'm just going to renew where I'm at versus I'm voting for an increase in a particular area. So we're sensitive to that as well. And that's why timing is going to be critically important.
All right, further questions from board members? If not, go ahead.
Tank,
Yes.
Carpenter,
Yes.
Berge,
Yes.
McKellar,
Yes.
Shear,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
and Brown.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Item D, master course list of 2021-22 calendar for Goleta. Linda?
Yes, this is our annual request to authorize or to approve the course list as well as the operating calendar for the adult education program. If you recall, that program is fiscal by the intermediate school district, and yet it's run by Michigan First Long Beach Partnership. It's our annual request.
Right? I make a motion to, the master course list.
Support.
There's a motion support discussion. Go ahead.
Tank,
Yes.
Carpenter,
Yes.
Berge,
Yes.
McKellar,
Yes.
Shear,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Item E, recommendation Record Eagle renewal contract. Linda?
This is our annual request for the volume discount with the Record Eagle. We utilize them primarily for our legal notices as well as personnel recruitment. I make the motion.
Support. There's a motion support. Is there discussion? Go ahead.
Tank,
Yes.
Carpenter,
Yes.
Berge,
Yes.
McKellar,
Yes.
Shear,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Item F, recommendation timekeeping software contract renewal. Linda, again.
For your consideration, this is a renewal contract to upgrade to the latest version for our timekeeping system. We currently use Kronos. The project over the next 5 years is projected to cost $129,250. We have approximately 230 of our employees that utilize this timekeeping system. It would represent the bulk of our hourly employees. This system is fully integrated with our finance accounting software package, and so we would ask for this renewal upgrade to be
I make a motion to approve the timekeeping software contract renewal.
Support. Motion and support. Is discussion. Go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
At the risk of sounding like I'm trying to take part in day-to-day activity, has it ever been considered not using time clocks?
That is, I know that has been asked, but we do have an obligation to follow the Fair Labor Standards Act. And so this allows us to be able to track time and effort work so that we ensure that we are compliant with the law. We also need to ensure that we have accurate hours reported for retirement services.
Further questions?
Tank,
Yes.
Carpenter,
Yes.
Berge,
Yes.
McKellar,
Yes.
Shear,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Item G, recommendation labor contract bid to install the Arnell boiler. Again, Linda.
This is phase 2 of the Arnell boiler replacement project. If you recall last month, we asked for your approval to actually purchase the boiler. which is on order and on its way. So now we are asking for this labor contract to be able to actually install and get the boiler up and operational. It's our recommendation that, and it's also the recommendation on behalf of the architect and engineer, that we select the low bid of $236,000 to J.E. Johnson to do the work.
I move we approve the bid from J.E. Johnson for the boiler replacement at Arnell Complex.
Support.
There's a motion support, discussion. Go ahead.
Tank,
Yes.
Carpenter,
Yes.
Berkey,
Yes.
McKellar,
Yes.
Shear,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Brown.
yes,
Motion carries. Thank you.
Item H, recommendation Marzano, eye observation from 2021-22. Matt?
Thank you, President Fisher. And just as a side note, I think this is my first time not doing this in front of the screen, so this is good.
Who are you exactly?
Screen actually is probably not there. Marzano evaluation system, this is a recommendation to approve for the annual licensing agreement. Just a couple of notes that this is, of course, used by the entire region, not just our school district. It is a statutory requirement of the state of Michigan. Marzano is one of only several systems that are approved. We've been using it since 13-14. While it certainly engenders its share of issues with related to the statutory requirement, the system itself is actually quite impactful and is appreciated by the region. So recommendation is to continue that use of that system.
I'll make the motion to approve the annual license agreement for the Marzano.
Support. Motion and support, is there discussion? Go ahead.
Tank,
Yes.
Carpenter,
Yes.
Berkey,
Yes.
McKellar,
Yes.
Shear,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Brown.
yes,
Motion carries. Thank you.
I recommendation annual power school maintenance and support, again, Matt?
Yeah, this is just our, annual update with our Power School support license. The amount of just over 51,000, 51,551.59. Our portion of that is $30,823 billed back to the districts for the remaining portions. But again, this is a ubiquitous system. Every district in our region uses this, along with us ourselves. And of course, it's our student information system and holds pretty much all of our important critical student data. So just looking for that annual update from the board.
I'll make a motion.
Support.
Motion support, discussion. Go ahead.
Tank,
Yes.
Carpenter,
Yes.
Berkey,
Yes.
McKellar,
Yes.
Shear,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Brown.
yes,
Motion carries. Thank you.
Item J, recommendation security content filter. Again, Matt?
This is a recommendation for it is a new provider. As you probably know, content filtering is required by law for schools. We're looking to switch vendors to a consortium bid with the Wayne RESA. This it's a $56,568 expenditure purchased through the REMC bid. Our portion of that is $25.56, so it's relatively small. This will be spread out throughout the entire region. Districts again would be built back. Our tech services is in strong support of this. Our current system has some issues, and we believe that the upgrade to this particular system at relatively minimal cost will really improve our reliability of internet and for both us and the region.
I need a motion.
All right, there's a motion to support, is there discussion? Go ahead.
Tank,
Yes.
Carpenter,
Yes.
Berkey,
Yes.
McKellar,
Yes.
Shear,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Brown.
yes,
Motion carries. Thank you.
Item K, contract with Carolyn M. McCanders, Liberation LLC. Good morning, Carol.
Good morning, everyone. This is a request to approve a contract with Carolyn McCanders, who has provided on several occasions here training in adaptive schools. And she is an excellent presenter. This proposal is for 8 days of cognitive coaching training between August 26th and April 27th of the upcoming school year. And her training addresses coaching skills for leaders to support the effectiveness of the people they supervise in both individual decision-making and effective group decision-making and working together.
Who's the motion?
Support.
There's a motion of support. Is there discussion? Go ahead.
Tank,
Yes.
Carpenter,
Yes.
Berkey,
Yes.
McKellar,
Yes.
Shear,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Brown.
yes,
Motion carries. Thank you.
Item L, board policies number 5703, medications, and 5708 do not resuscitate. Order. Dr. Sabari?
Yeah, this will be a second reading and adoption of the two policies indicated 5703 and 5708. Also want to just remind the board that underneath these policies are administrative guidelines that really outline how we will be administering those policies that you enact. And I would just like to make a comment that a shout out to Carol, her team, and our nurses who provided very specific feedback to Troon and the policies, which they in response appreciated and adjusted their policies accordingly. So just a testament to our staff, their level of expertise and how it's appreciated really statewide.
And then and then the policies and would kind of enact how these situations very specifically would be handled.
Correct. Yeah.
Is there a motion?
I make the motion to approve.
Support.
Thank you. Motion support. Further discussion?
I just want to say that, this is a part of education that we don't think of as education. And the decisions that have to be made and it's just amazing, some of the things that we expect from people in our ISD. And so hats off to all of you for the hard work on this. Thank you.
Have your administrative guidelines already been rewritten?
Correct. Yep. And I'd be happy to share if you'd like to see a copy of those guidelines.
I kind of would,
Yeah.
just because of how complicated this is.
For sure.
I'm not questioning anything about what.
Absolutely. Yep, we will definitely, I see Carol making a note right now. It is.
Further discussion? Go ahead.
Tank,
Yes.
Carpenter,
Yes.
Berkey,
Yes.
McKellar,
Yes.
Shear,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Brown.
yes,
Motion carries. Thank you.
Item M, recommendation salaries for administrators, classified ancillary personnel for 2021.
Yeah, it's our recommendation that we're seeking the board's approval on cost of living adjustment and associated step increases for all administrators, ancillary staff, and classified staff. Over the past year, we've worked with a third-party consultant to really benchmark where our ancillary staff and non-contracted staff have been, and this incorporates that benchmarking that took place.
Okay,
I'll make that motion.
Support.
discussion.
Yeah, I have a question. So it aligns, I mean, the benchmarking was done. And what I'm seeing here is it sounds like our pre-existing structure fit in within that benchmark pretty well, or are there adjustments that I can't quite see here?
Yeah, so I would say for the most part, there were, depending on the classification, there were maybe a little bit more significant an adjustment on the step side of things. Outlined in our association contracts, there's an annual step increase.
Yeah.
Depending on the associated contract, it could be anywhere from maybe 1.5% increase to a 2.5 or higher percent increase, depending. And so some adjustments to align to that were made. On average, I believe the overall increase to an employee is about 4% or just below. Is that right? Yeah.
So the alignment to existing steps within our organization is what you're talking about from the, I'm saying that when you did the benchmark study, was it outside the
Correct.
ISD review? Did we see step changes to align with that benchmark outside ISD analysis, or was it simply inside steps relative?
It was really both, but the majority of their recommendation was benchmarking with like organizations outside of our structure.
So you didn't evaluate, you didn't conclude that there were major gaps. I mean,
Correct.
very minor.
Well, I mean,
Well, I say very minor. I mean, it wasn't major.
correct. I would agree.
What are you laughing about?
One man's major is another.
That's right. It might be very major and somebody else is very minor, right?
But anyway, it looks like it fit within the benchmark pretty well.
Yeah.
We're already doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, and I, again, would like to just give kudos to Linda and her team, Sean specifically, Director of Finance, and Emily Quinn, Director of HR. Spent a lot of time with this, so.
Further discussion.
I have a question. Did we just approve a 2-year renewal last year for administrators?
I believe our administrator contracts, it depends on the administrator contracts, but some of them are 2-year and some of them are annual. Is that
Correct, the schedule is an annual approval.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Tank,
Yes.
Carpenter,
Yes.
Bergie,
Yes.
McKellar,
Yes.
Shear,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Brown.
yes,
Motion carries. Thank you.
M, Regional Common Calendar.
Yes, so what I have presented to you for your approval is per statute, we are required to provide a regional common calendar that looks out 5 years. And so this would be that 5th year extension for your approval. I think it's important to note that the common calendar requires all local districts to follow specifically the winter break schedule as well as the spring break schedule. Any deviation from the common calendar requires MDE approval. And I only mention that because specifically this coming school year, we have, I would just say from a common calendar perspective, an abbreviated break for winter break. And so we will likely see many of our local districts that will be applying for a waiver to extend that. Some have already done that.
All right, is there a motion? Do I make a motion to approve the common calendar? Fine. Discussion. Go ahead.
Tank,
Yes.
Carpenter,
Yes.
Bergie,
Yes.
McKellar,
Yes.
Shear,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
and Brown.
yes,
Motion carries. Thank you.
Item O, recommendation superintendent evaluation contract extension through June 30, 2026. I'm just going to read this and ask that this be placed in Dr. Seagar's file, assuming approval from this board. Here we go. According to Northwest Education Service Policy number 1240, the Board of Education must evaluate the superintendent job performance at least annually and through the district-approved evaluation tool. Our professional leadership staff is evaluated throughout the district using the Marzano District Leader Evaluation Model, which each board member provides me with feedback. Through the board-specific feedback and feedback from North Ed's leadership team, we provide Dr. Sigorik with a rating of highly effective. During this challenging year, Dr. Sigorik facilitated countless meetings with district leaders and our medical community to ensure student safety was at the forefront. While some districts try to survive the school year, Dr. Saglarik and the staff persevered and thrived, which was evident with the accomplishment of the majority of the SAIL, parenthetically, our district strategic plan, close parentheses, goals. Community leaders have commented on their sincere appreciation for the leadership Dr. Saglarik provides, particularly within the community development of Northwest Michigan and the Northwest Education Services Superintendents Association. One board member sums up Dr. Saglarik's leadership, quote, Dr. Saglarik is the epitome of a servant leader. He listens and communicates with constituents, is empathetic and caring, and promotes autonomy among the staff. I am continually impressed with his leadership and growth, those quotes. Another member added, quoted, Dr. Saglarik's leadership, availability, and inclusiveness have built trust with internal and external constituents that we are laser focused on the best interests of the students within our region, those quotes. In closing, we would like to thank Dr. Saglarik for his dedication and service to our local school districts and the internal school community. So those are my thoughts with respect to the evaluation of Dr. Saglarik. We need a motion to approve this evaluation.
I'd be very happy to make that motion to approve the evaluation.
So support. Okay, discussion. Go ahead.
Tank,
Yes.
Carpenter,
Yes.
Bergie,
Yes.
McKellar,
Yes.
Shear,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
and Brown.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
And then we have item P that we've added, and that is changing the July board meeting from July 6th to July 7th at 8 a.m. right here. Sort of motion to that effect.
I'll make that motion.
Support.
Discussion?
Tank,
Yes.
Carpenter,
Yes.
Bergie,
Yes.
McKellar,
Yes.
Shear,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Roman numeral 4, discussion items, Dr. Saglarik.
No discussion items, President Fisher.
Well, thank you. Roman numeral 5, information items. Reconfirming instructional delivery methods consistent with preparedness and response plan.
Yes. Yesterday was our last day with students and staff. Very exciting. Appreciate all the celebrations that took place for truly unique school year. I'd like to report to the board that the month of May, we had a 98% students who met the requirements for participation in two-way communication. We have successfully executed our extended continuity of learning plan. And we actually have, in accordance with MyOSHA and MDHS, we'll be revising that plan for workplace over the summertime, beginning July 1. Again, just kudos to the staff for a challenging but yet very successful school year. So that is my report.
Can I ask you a quick question? Next year, like when do we tackle this continuity of learning, something plan related? I mean, is there gonna be more of this stuff starting in August where we're gonna have to figure out what the year is gonna look like, or what are you hearing?
So that's a great question.
I only ask great questions.
Yeah. So noted, so noted.
I'll notice that.
The-
said 80% of my questions were good, but I was saying all of them, but anyway, go ahead.
The requirement, the statute has run on this school year. This school year, we were guided by our extended continuity of learning plans and COVID-19 preparedness response plans. That ends June 30th with the school year. There is much anticipation as to see what might happen in terms of requirements. I can let you know with the discussions from a legislative perspective, it is very unlikely that there will be significant additional mandates regarding masking, regarding general practices, and it's too early to say. we'll be monitoring that very closely. The CDC has yet to come out with their guidance for fall. And many states in advance of that are choosing to go in their own direction. So likely it will be fairly local in terms of a decision on how we will operate. But we will monitor the situation, and our staff has been incredible to ensure that we're compliant.
So formally, June 30th, the plan ends.
Correct.
July 1, blank slate. Summer programming, how do we deal with that in terms of now we've gone to no plan at all? So
Yeah.
what are we doing?
So our position is June 30th. The plan covers us until June 30th. So our students are still not, the vast majority of them still not able to get vaccinated. So masking is still a part of our summer school plan up until that point. You know, come July 1, there are some adjustments to those individuals that are vaccinated. From an employee standpoint, you know, here we're sitting 6 feet apart, we're fully vaccinated and are able to make some of those adjustments. So it will depend on how that rolls itself out. I do know we have kids camp this week. Next week. And again, the requirement to be masked will stay in place until.
So there's July programming too, right? Like sometime in July. So is the board doesn't have to decide anything formally for post July 1 stuff. You guys administratively or from an executive standpoint
Correct.
decide that. We don't have any formal.
There's no formal requirement.
Okay.
Yeah, for the board to.
Good.
Okay, Dr. Sigorik, updates, or was it your report?
Just a couple items. One, it seems not enough to just say thank you to our staff. There are so many people that have put in so much time, that have worked behind the scenes. I was reminded at a leadership meeting yesterday that we really didn't have a summer last year. And so my hope and my prayer is that our staff are able to have a summer this year and really be able to rejuvenate. You know, there's just too many people to thank for everything they've done, but I would like to make mention of Renee, who's not here but is behind the scenes. I just can't thank her enough for everything she does for the board, for myself, for our office. She truly is someone that deserves those kudos and recognition. And she would be kicking me if she was in here right now. But I wanted to say that. Congrats to Liz and Jim for their election. Thank you for your service. It is so greatly appreciated. And just a reminder that we chug on in the summertime. You know, I think of our business office and the audit that's coming up and the payroll and the presentation that they provided you today. We have many end of year reports that are being done that are due June 30th. And so, you know, a kudos to our year-round staff that are working tirelessly behind the scenes again. And then I would just end with, I'm humbled by your evaluation, appreciate your support. We are truly an organization that works together and collaboratively, and so it is not a single person. I really feel that evaluation represents the hard work of all of our staff and the collaboration of the board. So thank you for that. That is all, President Fisher.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sigorik. And I'm sure all the board members join with you in congratulating the hard work of the staff. This last 12 months, it's been impossible. Okay, any other board member reports or requests?
I just wanted to share how Cascade has selected a new superintendent. And so I'm super excited tonight. We have a special board meeting to approve this again. Rick Heitmeyer.
Great. Okay, dates to remember, July 7th. So make sure it's not the 6th, it's the 7th. And the nothing further for us to consider. We are adjourned, so enjoy the remainder of June. See you in July.
There's another one.